Yo, what up YouTube? Kdude here, and welcome back to another Vault Tower Defense devlog. So I know I said in the last devlog that I'd be making a new video every 2 to 3 weeks, but I lied. But that doesn't mean that we haven't been working. So right off the bat, we've got 7 new troops and Chapter 2, which has entirely new enemies and bosses. That's already a lot, but there's also now an entire ability system where troops can have abilities that players can activate, such as shooting a missile or something. But wait, there's more. We've also got gadgets, which are consumable items that do all sorts of things, such as collecting drops from Sunny, buffing troops, killing enemies, or even gadget bots, which are like mini temporary troops. Before we go any further, I just want to thank you guys for showing support for the game. The first devlog just hit 10,000 views, which is really cool. And we've also got a few hundred people in our Discord server. And speaking of the Discord server, you should join it. We post sneak peeks of the game before they make it into videos, and you can make suggestions for the game, so if you want to keep up to date or hang out or whatever, come and say hi. Anyway, shilling over, let's begin. So to start off, we're addressing a minor problem with obstacles. Currently, troops will see enemies through an obstacle and still shoot, even though their bullets are being blocked. Now obviously, we don't want troops attacking enemies that they can't hit, so we need to block their vision. So what I do to fix this is just raycast from our troop to all enemies in range, and if we hit an obstacle, then we remove that enemy from our list of possible targets. And here it is in game. You can see that even though enemies are in range of the troop, because the vision is blocked by obstacles, the troop isn't shooting at all. Now next up is gadgets. Gadgets are helpful consumables which can vary in use. For example, Cash Crate just gives you $1,000. So you can see we have a new button by the troop bar which opens the gadget menu. Each gadget has an amount text telling you how much of each gadget you have, and clicking on a gadget you see we have a pop-up text asking if we want to use the gadget or not. So the first gadget we have is Gluebot. This bot is the gadget version of a new troop, which we'll talk about later. Gluebot's main shtick is that his bullets will slow down enemies. The next gadget is Spikebot. This bot is basically a weaker version of Mason. He'll place spikes on the track and they'll damage and do knockback to enemies. So these two bots don't actually have any upgrades, and selling them gives you no money back. You can also see that they have a little heart count above their heads. This heart count is basically their life. Every wave, the amount of hearts they have goes down by 1 until it hits 0, and then the troop dies. Then next up we have the Cash Crate, which just gives you $1,000, like I said. Pretty simple. Then we have the Farming Friend, which will collect drops from Sunny. Currently, Sunny's drops have to be picked up by the player, and will decay if left alone for too long. With Farming Friend, though, you can forget all about Sunny's drops and not lose any cash. Next up is Atomic Annihilation, which basically just kills every non-boss enemy currently alive. Good for when you're in a tough situation. And finally, we have the Booster Bowl, which will double every troop's speed for 30 seconds. This buff can be extended, so if you use 3 booster bowls all at once, you get 1 minute and 30 seconds of the buff. It also gives all troops some visual particles to show the buff is active. Next up we have the boss health bar. Currently, to see a boss's health, you have to hover over them, but it doesn't really make bosses feel all that different from normal enemies. But with the health bar that shows on the screen, it makes it feel like a unique, important enemy that you need to focus on. These boss bars only apply to main bosses like Grenader and not any mini bosses like Skullhead. You can see that there are percentage marks on the boss bar. These are where Grenader will fire grenades into the air, or whenever any other boss uses some kind of skill or ability or does something. Once the HP reaches the percentage, the little bar will turn orange and then fade away after a few seconds. Then I added some camera shake to the game to give everything some more impact. For now, it's just when a main boss spawns in, when Grenader fires his grenades, and when you lose health. Next up we have some new enemy mutations, and some of these are game changers. So first up we have Fortified, which just doubles the enemy's HP. Then we have the Yellow Shield, which resists slowing debuffs, like from Gluebot. You can see that their speed is completely unaffected by Gluebot. Now next up is the Blue Shield. This is the most important new mutation. The Blue Shield acts as sort of a second health bar, or a shield, I guess you could say. But the difference between this health bar and a normal health bar is that troops only deal 1 damage to this second health bar, unless they have any special blue shield upgrades. So here you can see that this enemy has only 10 HP, and Ash here is only doing 1 damage per shot. But once the shield HP reaches 0, Then we have the normal health bar back, and all the blue shield visuals go away. Now behind the scenes, what's actually happening here is that I just spawned an entire new enemy when that blue shield is deactivated. And finally, we have the purple and black shield. These two are pretty similar, so I'm categorizing them together. The purple shield resists fire attacks, and black resists explosive attacks. Some of the new troops coming up will be unable to hurt enemies with these mutations. Now it's time for the first troop of the video, Goyo. Goyo is basically a buffed up glue bot. He slows down enemies with glue shots, but he doesn't really do any damage. Not much else to say about Goyo, he's pretty much just a better glue bot. The slowness debuff is actually part of a new enemy debuff system that I made. So say I want to set an enemy on fire. Inside the troop attack module, I can just apply the debuff to the enemy, then enemy service will handle all the effects and timing and client rendering visuals. Next up is Ares. You can see that Ares is a bit shorter compared to Ash, and this is because Ares is a kid. Or she could just be a midget person. Now Ares is all about explosives. Her first 3 levels she throws grenades at enemies. These grenades actually explode and do AoE damage. You can see here that she takes a whole bunch of enemies out with the AoE. Then at level 4 she gains a grenade launcher, which is pretty much just grenades, but faster. Finally, at level 5 she gains a rocket launcher. She's also got a huge missile on her back, which leads us to abilities. So abilities are powers you get from some troops. They can stack, so multiple of that troop can each have their own abilities, but they all have separate cooldowns. So obviously the first ability is Ares, which fires that big missile on her back towards enemies, doing a bunch of damage and AoE and all that. It's got unlimited range, so it's good for when an enemy is far away from any troops you have. You can see a UI pop up when we upgrade her to level 5. This is how we activate the ability. You can also see a number count which shows how many of the ability you have ready and how many you have total. Now we're going back to troops with Vulcan. Vulcan is all about fire, meaning she is useless against any purple shield enemies. For the first 3 levels, she has Molotov cocktails. Cock. Anyway, whenever these Molotov cocktails hit an enemy, they get set on fire. This fire will slowly do damage over time before going out. Then at level 4, 5, and 6, she gains a flamethrower, which obviously also sets the enemies on fire. Now what makes Vulcan really shine is her ability. At level 5, she gains an ability which calls in a helicopter. This helicopter will fly around the map, setting fire to enemies. Then, when there's no targets left, the helicopter will return to Vulcan and circle around her. Now behind the scenes, this helicopter is basically just a part that moves around towards enemies, and we use some of our friendly client-sided rendering to render that as a helicopter, all tweened and animated nicely. So then, when there's no targets, the helicopter will fly towards Vulcan until it's close enough. Then I use some math to make it circle around Vulcan until new enemies are spawned. Now I wish I could say that I'm super smart and I made that math myself, but I just googled it and stole somebody else's math. At level 6, Vulcan will actually keep the helicopter permanently and gain a new ability which summons a supercopter. That's not what it's called, I just thought supercopter was a cool name. Anyways, this helicopter is a lot bigger, so it moves slower, but it's got 4 flamethrowers instead of 1, so it does a lot more damage. So now we have Chapter 2, Sacred South. In VTD, chapters are basically entirely unique levels, meaning different waves, enemies, bosses, maps. For chapters, we've kind of been going based on locations around the world. So for Chapter 1, it's North America, or the Wild West, with a whole Western cowboy theme going on. Chapter 2 is South America, so we went with a jungle theme. Lots of enemies wear tiki masks, and there's even a giant gorilla robot, which, hello, awesome. But a key difference in chapters is the main boss, which for Chapter 2 is Pathfinder. So here's what Pathfinder looks like. He's got this skull mask, some kind of flower going on his head. I don't know, he's a pothead or something. And he's also got this cool staff. So like how Grenader had a unique ability, so does Pathfinder. Whenever Pathfinder hits a mark on his health bar, he'll teleport backwards 30% of the track with his staff. And he'll also gain a blue shield. Now this blue shield is unique because it wears off after a few seconds, so it's temporary. You can still destroy it normally, but you're probably not going to be able to do enough damage fast enough to destroy it. He'll also stun any troops in the area, which you can see by the stars circling the troop's head. Pathfinder also has a passive ability. Basically, every enemy behind him gets sped up, but once they reach Pathfinder, they go back to normal speed. Now we're back to some more troops with Axel. Axel uses this purpley laser gun to target enemies, but instead of firing bullets or shots at enemies, she does a constant stream of damage with a laser. If she targets the same enemy for too long, her gun will overheat, and she won't be able to attack for a few seconds. The longer she targets an enemy, the more damage she does, but the damage buff resets when she targets a new enemy. Axel also completely ignores the whole pierce system. So, say she's targeting a boss or something, you want her to hit, and there's this stupid little peasant peon guy in the way. The laser will actually ignore the little goober and only target the boss. Basically, Axel is the accelerator from Tower Defense Simulator, which makes me constantly call her Excel instead of Axel, because her name is a play on accelerator, Axel, but it's spelt A-X-E-L-L-E, which is like accelerator, kinda. Please don't sue Tower Defense Simulator, thank you. Now we have Noah. Noah is a support who throws mugs of milk. Let's just say the white stuff is milk. He throws milk at enemies to make them take more damage from troops, which is already a good buff. But at level 3, Noah gains a Brewbot buddy, which will actually target troops and buff them. Now these buffs are temporary, but they're not based on time. They're based on attacks. At first, after 10 attacks, the troop will lose the buff, but the amount of attacks that can happen before they lose the buff goes up through the upgrades, until reaching level 6, where Brewbot's buff is now unlimited, meaning it lasts forever, or until you sell Noah. He also turns into a frickin' glow-stick rave monster at max level. I mean, even Brewbot's beard glows. Now we have a huge rework to the modifier system. A lot has changed, so let's just go through the process of matchmaking together. So when you first start setting up a game, it starts off the same, letting you pick a game mode. But now we have a new chapters menu, where we have Wild West, Sacred South, and a third, but unfinished chapter. For now, we're just gonna pick Wild West. Then we go into the new difficulty selection. Modifiers have pretty much been removed, and we're just sticking with a few difficulties. Easy, normal, and pain. Each of these have unique wave sets, unique final bosses, all that. Selecting a difficulty will now open up a new menu which shows us the rewards. Now we kept the first time reward system, so playing that difficulty, that chapter for the first time does give you more rewards. But now we have a vault reward. Before, vaults from winning modifiers were set, but now it's a chance to get all the vaults listed. Then once we press play, it takes us to the settings menu like before. And then we're done. Now you may have noticed we never picked a map, and that's because that's also been reworked. So now each chapter has its own set map instead of having a bunch of maps to pick from. It might kind of sound like an L not having many maps, but the maps are now a lot more detailed and thought out. Wild West has this cool desert theme map which is similar to the old Bitter Badlands. And Sacred South has this jungle map with temples and palm trees and this little dead dude in the corner. The changes to modifiers and maps have been a big rework of progression of the game, and I promise you it'll definitely be for the better. Now we have two final troops, Ace and Harvey. I'm just grouping these together because code-wise they're very similar to Ash, so there's not really much to cover. Ace has a rifle, and code-wise he's identical to Ash. Over his upgrades, his stats go up, but he doesn't get anything like abilities or different weapons or anything. He just sticks with the rifle the whole time. Harvey wields a minigun, which shoots very fast. Harvey does get upgrades to his minigun, however. At level 4, he gains another barrel, which shoots 2 bullets instead of 1. Then, at level 5, he gets another 2 barrels, and he shoots 4 bullets. So he's pretty good for crowd control. The past 3 months have been a huge improvement for the game. All the new troops, enemies, abilities, mutations, reworks, and more. There's a bunch of stuff I didn't even cover in this video. If I covered every little change, this video would be a lot longer, because most of it is boring stuff like reworking the path system, or small little UI changes and fixing bugs. I've been streaming every once in a while as well, where I work on the game for a few hours. I stream the creation of a few troops and abilities and some other stuff, just playing the game, playing some other games. So if you want to see some more stuff early, definitely come watch sometime. If you guys want to support this game, leaving a like on the video and joining the Discord servers are the best ways to do so. Getting the game out there with these devlogs has somehow started a little community for this game before it's even ready. So thank you guys for enjoying these videos and for hopefully looking forward to the game. We're getting further and further along every day, and I cannot wait for you guys to finally be able to play this game. Anyways, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.